You know those moments when peace and quiet are all you want, and then life decides to throw a Karen into the mix? Yeah, that's how this all started. My house sits at the edge of the subdivision, right by a small creek that separates my property from the main road. Years ago, I built a little wooden bridge over it. Sturdy, functional, and just mine. It wasn't HOA property. It wasn't in their jurisdiction, but apparently no one told Karen, the self-appointed queen of our HOA board. It started with a letter, a neatly folded envelope stuffed into my mailbox that smelled faintly of cheap perfume and arrogance. You are hereby notified, it read, that the bridge you constructed violates HOA standards and must be inspected by the board before further use. I laughed out loud when I read it. The bridge was on my land. I even double-checked the surveyor's map to be sure. But still, I tried to play nice. I walked over to the HOA office that weekend, thinking a quick chat would clear everything up. That's when I met her, Karen in all her glory. Blonde bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, lips pursed like she'd just bitten into a lemon. Sir, she said, crossing her arms, that bridge is a liability. People could sue the HOA if someone falls. It's on my property, I replied, calm but firm. No one's crossing it but me. She tilted her head with that condescending smile that said she'd already decided she was right. Then consider this your warning. The board will decide what happens next. 2 days later, I woke up to orange cones blocking my bridge, and a sign that read, "Your property, do not cross." My jaw literally dropped. She had gone too far. I called her right away, voice steady but angry. "Karen, move the cones. You have no authority on my property." "Actually," she said sweetly, "you'll need to pay a usage fee if you want to access the road again. HOA maintenance, you understand." A usage fee? She was extorting me for using my own bridge. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. But I knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to win this one. That night, rain started falling. Heavy, fast, relentless. The creek began to rise, and with it, so did my anger. And that's when an idea started forming. One that would turn this little HOA power play into something she'd never forget. By morning, the rain had turned the creek into a muddy, roaring mess. My bridge creaked under the weight of the water rushing beneath it, but it held strong, like it always had. What didn't hold up, though, was my patience. I stepped outside with a mug of coffee and saw Karen standing on the other side of the cones, clipboard in hand, raincoat perfectly pressed, barking orders at 2 HOA volunteers, like she was directing a military operation. "Make sure the cones are visible from the street," she yelled, "and we'll need photos for the board meeting. Liability documentation." I took a long sip, trying not to laugh. "Morning, Karen. You know you're trespassing, right?" She turned, squinting at me through the drizzle. "Actually, you're the one violating HOA guidelines. That bridge is now under review. Until further notice, it's closed." I couldn't believe it. "Karen, you can't close something that isn't yours," she smirked. "Well, until you pay the HOA access fee, you're free to walk around the creek like everyone else." That's when I noticed her shiny silver SUV parked right at the edge of the cones, blocking the path completely. The arrogance was unreal. She wasn't just enforcing imaginary rules. She was making a scene. By noon, neighbors started gathering. Some whispered, some filmed. I overheard one guy say, "Man, she's at it again. Last week it was someone's mailbox." The HOA drama had become a neighborhood spectacle. I finally decided to make things official. I pulled out my phone and called the county land office. The clerk confirmed what I already knew. My property line extended past the creek. The bridge was 100% mine, and if anyone was blocking it, that was trespassing. So I did what any reasonable man would do. I called the sheriff. When the deputy arrived, Karen's smile faltered just a little, but she recovered fast. "Officer, this man built an unsafe bridge that endangers the community." The deputy looked at me. "You own the land?" "Every inch," I said, handing over the deed copy I'd brought. He sighed. "Then she's got no say here." For a second, I thought that would end it. Karen huffed, stormed to her SUV and drove off, tires spinning, mud flying. But the next morning, she was back. This time, she'd brought construction tape, new cones, and a ridiculous metal barricade she must have borrowed from the HOA storage shed. She was doubling down. That's when my neighbor, old farmer Doug, leaned over the fence and said with a grin, "Want me to bring the tractor?" And right then, I knew. Things were about to get interesting. By the next morning, it wasn't just my bridge that was blocked. It looked like a construction site sponsored by pure spite. Karen had outdone herself. Caution tape flapped in the breeze. Cones lined up like soldiers. And a new metal barricade sat proudly across the bridge with a bright yellow sign. HOA restricted area. Trespassers will be fined. Fined. On my own property, I swear. She must have spent the entire night planning her little dictatorship. Doug, my neighbour, was already leaning against his old green John Deere tractor, coffee in hand, grinning like a man who'd been waiting his whole life for a showdown. Are you sure you don't want me to nudge that nonsense out of the way? Doug, I said, I just might take you up on that. We waited, and sure enough, right on cue, 9 a.m. sharp, the HOA queen herself showed up in her shiny silver SUV. The one she loved to brag was fully loaded. She parked right in front of the barricade, blocking the road again, rolled down her window, and smiled that smug, sugar-coated smile. I see you're still refusing to comply, she said. Karen, I replied, I've called the sheriff. Again. Oh, please do, she shot back. Let's see who the law agrees with this time. Doug muttered, she's about to find out. About 15 minutes later, Doug climbed up onto his tractor and started it with a loud chug chug chug. The sound echoed through the creek valley like a warning bell. Karen jumped out of her SUV, waving her arms. Excuse me, this is private HOA business, she yelled. Doug just smiled and kept rolling forward, slow but steady. Ma'am, this bridge ain't HOA property, he said calmly over the engine noise. And these cones, they're trespassing. Karen stood her ground for a moment, but then the tractor kept moving. The barricade creaked, cones toppled, and mud splattered across her SUV's shiny chrome bumper. Stop! You're scratching my car, she screamed. Move it then, Doug replied deadpan. She scrambled back into her SUV, trying to reverse, but her tires spun helplessly in the mud. The more she pressed the gas, the deeper she sank. The tractor nudged forward again, this time closer to the edge of the bridge. The wet soil gave way beneath one of her tires, and before anyone could react, her SUV slid sideways with a loud crunch. For a split second, everything went silent. Then came the splash. Loud, shocking, final. Karen's precious SUV was nose down in the creek, water rushing around it. Doug turned off the tractor and looked at me, smirking. Guess the HOA just met gravity. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. But as Karen climbed out of the water, drenched and fuming, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. The sound of Karen's SUV gurgling in the creek could have been straight out of a movie. Steam hissed from the hood. Mud clung to every surface, and the once shiny silver exterior was now a swamp-colored mess. Karen stood there soaked. Mascara streaked down her face, shrieking into her phone. Yes, my car is in the water! Because of that man and his tractor accomplice. I want them both arrested. Doug and I exchanged a look. Tractor accomplice, he whispered, trying not to laugh. A few neighbors had gathered by now, phones out, filming everything. One even muttered, well, Karma's got four-wheel drive today. The sheriff arrived within minutes, the same deputy from before. He stepped out of his car, took one look at the scene, and sighed like a man who'd seen this coming a mile away. What happened this time, he asked. Karen stormed up to him, shoes squishing in the mud. That man and his friend destroyed HOA property. They pushed my car into the creek. The deputy turned to me. That true? She blocked my private bridge again, I said evenly. Doug here moved the barricade with his tractor. She refused to move her SUV, spun her tires, and, well, gravity did the rest. Doug nodded, hands in his pockets. Didn't touch her car, officer. Just cleared my buddy's bridge. The deputy wrote a few notes, looked back at Karen, and said calmly, Ma'am, this bridge isn't HOA property. You were warned last time. Blocking it again could be considered trespassing and harassment. Karen froze. A harassment? Me? Yes, ma'am, the deputy said. And filing false complaints doesn't help either. The look on her face was priceless. Pure disbelief. Like the universe itself had turned against her. But I'm on the board, she sputtered. Then maybe it's time to step down before someone votes you out, the deputy replied flatly. Doug chuckled so hard I thought he'd choke. By sunset, the tow truck had dragged Karen's SUV out of the creek, dripping and half ruined. The HOA board held an emergency meeting the next day, and guess who wasn't invited? 2 weeks later, a new letter arrived in my mailbox. This time, it was short, polite, and unsigned. Effective immediately, Karen has been removed from her position as HOA chairperson. We apologize for any inconvenience caused. I folded the letter, smiled, and looked out over my bridge. Freshly cleaned, cones gone, peace restored. Doug waved from his porch. "Need me to guard the bridge tonight?" he joked. "Nah," I said. "I think she's had enough water for one lifetime." I took a deep breath, listening to the sound of the creek flowing gently again. No barricades, no shouting, just quiet. And for the first time in months, I crossed my bridge, freely. Don't forget to subscribe to Karen Edition for more dramatic and unbelievable HOA and Karen stories. Like the video if you enjoyed the twist. Which moment impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments. We love hearing your thoughts. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next wild neighborhood drama.